I'll keep things brief because obviously she's a data, a HCP analytics data expert in general. But Gunjan's going to be joining us presenting on data fusion, unlocking next level HCP insights, and a little bit of background regarding Gunjan's experiences and history outside of her professional career. She is an avid climber, and she has recently climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and also trekked to Everest Base Camp. So as a cheesy simile here, she's always striving to climb higher in her ambitions. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Gunjan as our next speaker, and there'll be a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. Thank you, Gunjan.
Thanks, Simon, and good morning, everyone. Gunjan Aggarwal. I also did recently, last month, Costa Rica rainforest hike, and it's beautiful. Beginner level, medium level, anybody can do it easily. So just to add more to my introduction, I've been as head of data analytics at Novartis for 5 years. They're head of data strategy, digital marketing solutions, and Gurunthal Group. Very recently, I started realizing that what the AI is changing. AI is definitely changing the value which we bring in the different pharma companies industry, but it's also changing human behavior, how the opportunities get unlocked. That's why I'm building right now Wire.ai, which is a relationship intelligence platform. But this presentation is more about my role at Novartis and other companies in the pharma. So as Simon mentioned, last year I summited Mount Kilimanjaro, Cotopaxi. But if you see in both of it, in Cotopaxi, I'm still hanging, not reached the summit. It was just a 6 feet of difference, but I was not able to do the summit. And the reason was I was not prepared. I underestimated or overestimated a lot of things, overconfidence, and that didn't let me complete my journey. Now, the mountain wasn't the challenge, but my readiness was the challenge. Many times we have the right ambition in the organization too, but are we ready? And that's what I'm going to present, that how the base, whether it's the AI, whether it's omni-channel, what is the right data strategy which help you in getting well prepared. Now, in the Cotopaxi, what I realized, I wrote it down that what the things I need to be improved. One was there were less acclimatization days, less guide interaction, more prep was needed, overconfidence, and even the stupid mistakes which I did, that my battery drained off of my headlamp. Similarly, when we talk about HCP insights, in my role, I used to purchase 50 million of the data, only the data, the syndicated data, not even I'm including the first party which we acquired or the tools we have. After 50 million of the data, we were not getting the insights. Business was coming every day. Oh, we don't have this. We can't answer this. And in one of the previous sessions, it was mentioned patient centricity. Yes, that was the main word being used every day in the organization, that how can we be patient-centric if we don't have the insights? And for that insights, we don't have the data. But on the other hand, we were buying 50 million of the data. So the main was there was a disconnected value chain. There was a weak stakeholder connect. When we were purchasing, how we are interacting with the business, how much depth knowledge we have by the brand, that was missing. Even the tech without the strategy. Most of the time, we do bottom-up without having the right strategy, that what we buy, why we buy. And then definitely that leads to the strategic signal loss. That leads to the thin air of insights. Now, one example I would like to give was that I have worked across different therapeutic areas, neuro, immuno, onco, cardiovascular, pain management, rare disease. If you have experience with all these therapeutic areas, you can see that if in the cardiovascular, you have 99% of claims data as an example, you have only 40% in the onco and rare disease. And if the stakeholder is moving within the organization, the first thing they will say, I used to have everything in cardio. Why you don't have? Something wrong with you. But no, the value chain, the way we capture because it's an MX product, that is the main problem, not the there's something wrong in the buying the data. So what I first come up with to understand every business stakeholder in the organization, that there are 4 factors which impact what is the thinness of the data and the insights we can have based on the brand. So first is mode of administration, second is patient treatment setting, third is mode of distribution, and fourth is the competitor landscape. And I'll give an example. If it is an RX product, you have, as I said, 99%, MX, 40 to 50%. If it's a third in the line, the brand, then somebody who's already in the first line can block the data, and you will not be able to see who is prescribing. If it is a only specialty pharmacy, or if it is a broader, specialty pharmacies can also block the data. And I don't know if you have faced the challenge, but it was a very typical challenge we'll face. And then we have to talk to them, connect with the IQVIA, Komodo, Viva of the world to get the full insights. So that's how the fragmented data sets, disconnected teams, and missing signals leads to the thin air of the insights. These are the factors because of the data availability. But then there are so many other factors outside in the market which can also impact how the insights can be derived. The examples are regulations. How much of us are on top of every marketing framework or the regulation which comes by the state? California laws tell us different things. Massachusetts have different laws. Every time we have to be on top of it, and that leads to those policies, leads to how we capture the data, how do we store the data, how do we connect the data. And on top of it, every business function in the organization have their own summit. If you talk to the brand manager, they will say, hey, I wanted to have patient centricity. If you talk about the marketing, they will say, we want to do omni-channel, personalization. Somebody will say, I want to connect the dots. Data analytics people will say, we want to do next best action. Without having the same terminology of what exactly we want to do, that leads to other fragmentation in the insights. If you search now the HCP journeys on the internet, you will see hundreds of variations. Because every journey being created with goal first in the mind, that, hey, we want to show that this is the disconnect, and then in the reverse, the journey being taken. So what I did was I designed my own journey, which is more holistic across the brands. So it starts with awareness, data and the triggers, digital discovery, how we engage, the field interaction, and this is across the function. This is not just one journey. The personalization experience, reinforcement and depth, breadth expansion, feedback, and evolution. So if you have a target list of, let's say, 10,000 doctors, you need to divide that. How many out of that are the breadth doctors and depth? And just to double click on it, it means the doctors who are currently prescribing, you want them to prescribe more patients, that's the depth, which is generally 30%. 70%, those who are not prescribing, you want them to prescribe more. Based on that, your journey changes, your approach changes. So that's the reason, don't go by the industry HCP journey, write down your own steps, that how it has to be done. Now, field interaction, very interesting. I have written field interaction, but in one pharma company, there are 6-7 teams who are reaching out to the same doctor. And there is the HCP fatigue. And on top of it, they receive many campaigns. They go to congresses, they get campaigns. So how much you remember? That's where having a holistic data journey, the data strategy is important. So what I designed was, I designed the customer 360, which is HCP 360, for the pre-launch products and the post-launch. Pre-launch was to show that how the different teams are interacting with the same HCP, and how they are leaving the breadcrumbs which the next team can pick up. You can't cut down the teams. Everyone has a role. TLLs have a roles, MSLs have the roles, field reps have a role. But how do they piggyback on each other interaction so that the brand recall, the value in front of HCP remain maintained? That is the reason that one journey has to be designed so that you know at each journey what the steps to be taken. Now, when you design the journey, what are the data sets you require? I classify into 4 categories. Syndicated data, which we know all the claims and other data sets. First-party platform data, real-world clinical data, EHR, lab data, and the other innovative data sets or KOL data sets. Now, one interesting one is the foot traffic data. Anyone use foot traffic data in the pharma industry? So before my last 6-7 years in the pharma, I was across the industries. I have done for financial services, CPG, and many other. And in financial services, we use foot traffic data to understand the small, medium businesses' health. So that based on it, how much loans you can provide. Now, when I moved to the pharma, and for one of the prostate cancer drug, the key business question was that we want to open new sites because it was a radioactive drug. We wanted to open new sites in the US. So we were having claims data. We start looking at claims, but claims are for the patients who are already going through it. So what we did, we brought in the foot traffic data. So there is a referring doctor, there is a rendering doctor. Onco is prescribing to that traffic. So we start looking how the movement is. Are the patients traveling along, like 50 miles, 100 miles to get that? And then second data set was Google Analytics data, which was our own first-party data. We looked into it that what the HCPs and the patients are searching, because there was a form to search the new, by the zip code, the new sites. Combining both of it gave us the insight that these are the top 10 places where we can open the new sites for the product. So this is how, when you start combining the data set, you will get more and more insights. So in those organizations, I came up with a theme called Connected Data Strategy with 3 Cs. First C, comprehensive, second, compliant, and third, credible. Connectivity I would say it's difficult, but it's not impossible. But more important is that, does it create any bias? So let's say if you connect to increase the coverage for onco or rare disease, the claims data set, which we call it as stacking, it can increase from 30 to 70%, and then you connect with lab data. If you use some tokenization engine, 40% of the data get lost in that connectivity. But that also create a bias because you're only driving the insights from very thin data. So that is where whether it's a comprehensive data, and then the next is credible data. Let's say if you are trying to do patient segmentation based on their ethnicity or gender, you have to ask how they are driving that data set. Is it good enough to take a conclusion, or is it too less that it just creates more noise? So that is where having that connected data strategy with 3 Cs across the brands, and then considering the 4 factors, that mode of administration, mode of treatment, mode of distribution, and competitor landscape, combining all us gave us very niche data strategy for each brand to be successful. And then what I overlaid was that for each journey of the HCP, what is must-to-have data set? As I said that for awareness, data, and trigger, you need a syndicated data, and then more of other data sets. If you're targeting, then you need a publication, clinical trial. You should have an approach to combine tech to combine everything, but you have to look at each and everything because operationally, connected data strategy can be very expensive too. People heavy, and I don't think right now AI is very good in it because there is so much compliance, so much masking has to be done. If you have worked in rare disease, you know that there is a rule of 3, rule of 5, means if any particular zip code has less than 5 patients, you should not even connect the data because that's a patient identification risk. So there are so many nuances where still the AI has to come, but if you don't have a clarity that what you are doing, why you are doing, is it really impactful, you will get into that, like the whole Amazon jungle of the data, which will become very difficult for you to manage. Now, this is how, when you start combining across the journey, I feel you will reach your summit. And there are 3 stages. When you are not combining, it's fragmented. But the fused data gives you strategy, and the precise data gives you confidence to act. That is the key takeaway from this slide. Now, no presentation is complete without saying the word AI. So definitely AI is here. But why I'm talking about AI, that AI is really not possible without the right data strategy. In my role, I start seeing people coming up in 2023 that, hey, I need this, this, this. I said, wait, do we have the data? And I'll give an example. If you look at in pharma, broadly, there are two types of insights we drive. One from the primary market research and the secondary data, okay? Secondary data, yes, we have all the data coming from our claims vendor, and you can connect with lab and other. But primary market data research is we get as reports. We don't get the raw data. And those reports, if they say, hey, this HCP is saying we can prescribe, but you don't see that in the claims, then where is the gap? That is the biggest question we were having. So we decided that we will democratize the primary market research and implement AI on it. Now, that was a business case, but we never had primary market research data available in our cloud. So the very first step was that we start working with these vendors, and we say that we need this data, but those are interviews. And in those interviews, you can have HCP name, patient names, and many other sensitive information. So what we did was we masked everything. It took a lot of time for us, but it gave us a good framework which we replicated brand by brand. And after removing that, then we brought in the data and start implementing the AI. And then the next step was to combine those insights with the secondary, and that gives you the more fused data insights. So this is how the data strategy is very important. We all talk about AI has to be implemented, but it's important that you look at what data you have. Can it really AI work on it very efficiently by being all the compliance? So my last 3 actions to reach your summit, I would conclude that align data before you climb, connect science with the signals, and turn HCP journeys into the insight loops. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gunjan. And would anybody like to ask any questions, any comments on that? Obviously, I know we switched gears onto the analytics side of things, but anything that anybody wants to get off their chests before we hop into a panel session? Tough crowd Monday. Wayne, thank you.
So Gunjan, thank you for the talk. I have a general question about data. You mentioned that data is sort of the long pole in the tent for using your analogy, right, from trekking to making AI work. And that strikes fear in my heart, because I think having seen the inside of large pharma companies and the data, I think it's an impossible task to fix. So I'm wondering if there's a way for us to use AI to make a leap where we don't have to actually fix or refine our data, but use it in its current form and get value out of it.
So if I repeat the question, you're saying that having the best data strategy for AI can be a long game, but how do we implement AI in chunks until we fix the right data, enterprise-wide data strategy, right?
And the subtext is that the data is so complex, it's so large in volume, that I'm not sure it can be fixed. That's my point. It hasn't been fixed in the last, decade.
So that's a great point, and we have been trying for years to fix data, but it's not possible to be 100% there. And definitely we should look at the efficiency. So you need to define your key business questions. So the way I approach every brand is that you have strategic imperatives, then by each function, what are the KBQs, and then prioritize those KBQs. That which KBQ is important for SI. And then under that, what is the data minimum we have where we can take actions? And that's the reason I came up with the 3 C's, that do we have comprehensive, credible data? Can we 70% work, or you really need 90%? So once you have defined that and you feel that, yes, 70% data is enough to make the AI actionable, you can go and implement AI on it.
So just a quick follow-up to that. I'm not a data person, but why can't we just tell Claude Code to fix our data?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Why can't we tell Claude Code or whatever platform we're using to go fix our data?
No, because, okay, so in the pharma, the data is not what you are capturing of your own. It's a syndicated data. So if you purchase the data from Viva, Komodo, they have their other partners who send you the data. So the data is incomplete because of that. Even if I take a first-party data example, like your website traffic, none of the pharma company has a login on it. All are anonymous visit. So even if you implement pulse point AMXR, you still get 20 to 30% knowledge, the HCP who is visiting your website and what is the content you are consuming. Claude Code can come when you are connecting the data sets, or if you are more driving insights from NLP. But first you need more completion because Claude cannot make up the EHR data sets or the lab data sets.
So we're doomed, basically. Thank you very much.
All right. Any additional? Yes, Sabrina. Sorry. Wrong side of the room. Oh, no, it's I should know this by now.
Thank you for the talk. I saw a professor from Harvard speak at the Medical Affairs Professional Society in Denver in March, and she was sharing with us how there's more predictive modeling happening, like women who are doing searches in Google and asking questions, they were able to kind of delineate additional diagnoses of ovarian cancer based on 5 questions that were popping up to the top. How do you see this happening more, and how can we use technology to try to help find more patients and see more diagnoses with data?
Yeah, that's a question very close to my heart because, as I said, my experience, my career has been on the digital data analytics side, not just pure data. And when I got into the pharma industry, I tried to bring that experience. And one of the use case was, how do we build the persona of the patient and how we find more patients, especially in rare disease? If you look at the main problem is that by the time a patient knows that they have this disease, it's already 5 or 10 years being passed. So what we did was I connected the claims data with the SDOH data, social determinants of health. So all our data which we have on mobile, the Google, everything, you know, there are a lot of companies like XCM or even credit bureaus, they have it. So you combine the data set and first build the patient persona. That what is that patient looks like? And after that, I build the predictive model on it, propensity model, to identify the similar patients in the whole US population. So it's being possible, it's happening right now, but in very, I would say, in specific to the certain brands, because you don't want to run for cardiovascular where there's already epi is high. You only want to do where the patient search is thin. And there are data sets available. I think it's called Data 360. I'm forgetting the name of the company, who actually, based on the Google search, can help you. But I was not able to bring that data set in the organization because of compliance.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Sabrina and Gunjan. Any final quick questions, comments before we hop on? No? All right. Thank you very much,
you.
Gunjan. Thank you.